I think you should have patented your phrase. I can't believe it. What on earth? Did you know that become so famous? It was like you. I mean, like, so they're waiting those remarks. So tell us how this phrase started. Like, what on earth? I mean,
It's
BadminTalk is back.
Okay, hi everyone. Welcome back to BadminTALKSHOW. And I really don't believe it that we have our really special guest today, Gillian Clark, MBE. She's a former English badminton player, two-time World Championship bronze medalist, three-time All England runner-up, and current BWF commentator. Say hi to Gil. Hello.
hello, Jill. Hello.
Welcome to the BadminTALKSHOW episode 6, and we have me, Ray, and Angie as a host today, and we also have our team here, Sean, Ian, and Fifi, and Rudy as well. So today we will talk about you, we'll talk about badminton, we'll talk about the world in general, we'll talk about probably the coronavirus, and we'll talk about anything that we want. And prior to the session, we also have collected several questions from for the badminton fans around the world, and we select them to be during this session. So, how are you today? How are you coping yourself during this pandemic situation of the coronavirus going on?
Yes, I'm thankful to say I'm absolutely fine, and all my family are fine. My sister is a frontline NHS worker in the National Health.
Wow.
She's treating COVID patients on a daily basis. So we're concerned about her, but very proud of her because she's working extremely hard, like all health carers all over the world are working extremely hard. So obviously we don't get to see her at the moment, but we're all fine, so that's great. Thank you.
Are you going to ask her to have a dinner with you soon or not? Not allowed.
No, we can't. We're not allowed to.
Oh, really? Wow.
Our current situation in the UK is that we're easing the lockdown now, but we're still in a situation where anybody who's at risk, and of course with my sister treating COVID patients daily, she mustn't come and see us, and she has to, if she's not at work, she stays in isolation so that if she has picked up anything, she doesn't pass it on. So sadly I won't see her for some time yet, but we talk, and we're still communicating very well. So and like this, I've never, until this interview, I've never used Zoom before, so now maybe I'll Zoom her and my mother at the same time, and we can all see each other, and you know, it's second best obviously seeing each other, but it's still very nice to do.
I think you should. I mean, like, especially right now, I mean, like, it's kind of good, like, to know each other, like, I mean, unfortunately, I mean, that's what's happening right now. So what you're doing right now, I mean, during, lockdown, I mean, what exactly, I mean, your activities every day, even if it sounds like boring, tell us. We want to know.
Tell you. Right. Well, I recently, I say recently, at the beginning of February, I rescued another dog. We always have rescue dogs. And this poor little dog that I picked up was absolutely terrified. She'd been used for breeding on a puppy farm. And I have a very elderly rescue dog as well called Lucy. And Lucy is going to be 13 next month.
Wow.
And Lucy has been teaching the younger dog, who's 8. We think she's about 8. All the rules. The younger dog hasn't lived indoors, so she's had to learn about going outside to do her business, and she's still very terrified, but the older dog, Lucy, has been looking after Maya, the younger dog, and I've been I'm allowed to go for a walk, a daily walk, so I take Maya to the forest. Sadly, Lucy is too old to go to the walk. So, just Maya and I go off to the forest every day and have a lovely walk, and we've got some nice weather at the moment, so it's absolutely beautiful being out. So taking care of the dog, reassuring her. Of course, I've been working on my infamous player stats as well, so trying to find interesting stats for your viewers and everyone, that I hope in future will be fun facts for everybody, you know, to enjoy the commentary perhaps, and the matches even more.
So are you sure that Maya is not cheating her age?
Maya at the moment, they're in the kitchen, so
okay.
yeah, so they're very quiet at the moment, and let's hope it keeps that way, because Maya has got a very loud bark, so if she suddenly gets startled or something, you might hear barks in the background.
Well, maybe before the end of the show, we'd like to see Lucy and Maya, if you don't mind.
Maybe. We'll see. Certainly not at the moment. They will totally disrupt things.
Well, it seems like you're having kind of a good time staying at home, you know, after, you know, constant traveling every time. But do you miss traveling, or would you prefer like staying at home? You know, what do you feel?
I very much miss the badminton. Of course I do.
All do.
All the players, all the fans, everyone involved in the sport is missing the badminton terribly. I'm enjoying some quality time with my mother. My mother lives next door to me, so I'm enjoying spending a lot more time with her than I'm usually able to. So it's fine. I'm, you know, we're both happy. We're enjoying life, but I do miss that badminton.
I think everybody, I guess. I mean, like, you know, not only you. I mean, like, you know, we really. I think today, I think that the 62nd day with a badminton. I think today.
Yeah.
I think or 63rd. Yeah. So, are you cooking for your mom as well?
Well, the simple answer is no.
So who's cooking for you then?
Well, I need to explain that a little bit more, because I've been promising myself a new kitchen for the last 20 years. And just before lockdown, they ripped out my kitchen. I've got no sink, no cooker, nothing, no running water downstairs. And then we had lockdown. So I've been without a kitchen ever since the start of lockdown. And in fact, if you hear some banging in the background, it's the workmen who are now allowed to go back to work. So I've said, you start on my kitchen as soon as possible. So the workmen are there now. So so the simple answer is no. My mother has been doing more cooking for me than, and if I cook for her, then I have to cook in her kitchen at the moment. So it's all a bit chaotic at the moment, to be honest.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, so definitely all of us, I mean, we are all fans, so we do definitely miss badminton as well. So probably we'd like to hear some more badminton from you. Can you please tell us more about your childhood? Probably how do you get into badminton the first time?
Well, I've already said, talked about one sister, but I'm actually the youngest of 4 children. And I and my 2 sisters went to the same school, which was mainly a boarding school, but we were day girls. So with the boarding school environment, after academic lessons had finished, then there was lots of fun activities organized for the boarders before they had to do their homework and so on. So my mother was always very, very encouraging that we should try absolutely everything we could to find out what we liked and what we were good at and so on. So I used to stay late after the academic lessons and I joined the drama society. I joined the debating society. I wanted to join the choir, but they wouldn't have me. I simply wasn't good enough. My voice is terrible. So I couldn't do that. But the Badminton Club was one of the club's after school activities, and it was organised by the maths master. And that's how I got into badminton. But I'd already played a lot of tennis. So I played in the county junior under 12 tennis.
Wow.
So badminton sort of came quite easily because I had that racket skill and so on. So it all just developed from the badminton club at school that was set up by the maths master.
Yeah, you know, the long time ago, I mean, like, you know, at your time, I still remember that we're using a lot of wooden racket, right? The wooden racket.
Steady, Rudy, steady.
Yeah.
I'm not that old, you know.
Well, I still have the.
I don't think I ever used a wooden racket.
Well, I did before. I mean, the you know, what I'm saying is like it was really, even also that time you know, even also the metal one. I remember the carton is very heavy. It's a very heavy. I mean I have one cartons, but I think that time I think Lim Swee King used it before. I think we turned it. It's still very heavy. I mean, compared the racket we have right now is so light. I mean, are you keeping like the wooden racket as the you know, as a piece of your collection?
No. Simple answer. I never played with a wooden racket. I've never kept rackets or no. So, no. I do have a couple of rackets, but I haven't actually played badminton since the day I retired. So I don't play now. I don't have time to play now. And I've actually enjoyed the challenge of taking up other sports. So the badminton rackets, I've still got a couple in the cupboard, but they stay in the cupboard.
Right.
Well, I guess when you do the auction, it will be very, very expensive, I think.
We'll talk a little bit about your tennis later, but well, I was wondering, you know, after you retire, most people I think about going, you know, to coach instead of like commentate. Like, how'd you get into that? Did you like wake up one day and say like, oh, I want to be a commentator? Or what is that? What makes you decided to, you know, to become a commentator?
Well, no, I certainly didn't wake up and think I want to be a commentator. I was getting towards the end of my career, and in fact, I had decided that I wanted to retire, and I told my family that I was planning to retire, and my father at the time said, "Oh, good, you go back to university now. You never did do a degree, so perhaps you can do that." And that was whilst it was a fun thing to say, it was certainly an option. I didn't have a clue what I wanted to do. I knew I wasn't the character to be a coach. I think to be a coach, you have to be a certain personality, and I don't think my personality would have suited that. And just by a remarkable fate of good fortune, at the time, the IBF, as it was called then, the International Badminton Federation, and IMG, International Management Group, and Star Sports were just about to sign a contract to do a certain number of badminton coverage events per year. And because I think that part of the influence was because I was chair of the International Badminton Players Federation, now called the Athletes Commission. They knew I had an opinion and wasn't afraid to voice it. So I think that may have influenced them to say, okay, let's ask Jill if she would like to do it. And having never thought that that was an opportunity or something I could go into, very luckily I was given the opportunity, and the rest, they say, is history.
Right.
Wow. So the Jill, what is your first tournament that you started as being commentators? The first tournament ever.
Crikey. Well, I think actually I did some for a British broadcaster, just a little bit of colour commentator rather than in commentary. You tend to have two types of commentary, the lead commentator and the colour commentator. And I did a tiny bit of colour actually when I was just coming into the sport in the elite level at the 1983 World Championships, and I'd lost in the semi-final. The English pair of Nora Perry and Jane Webster were playing in the final. And so they asked me to sit along. I think it was Barry Davis, who's a very famous, excellent commentator here in the UK. And I did that, but then I didn't do any more for years and years and years. But that was my first experience, and having such a great commentator to sort of guide me through and you know, help me on that first experience was I was very lucky with that.
So go ahead.
Yeah, no. I was saying that, I mean, in the hindsight, it's actually quite interesting that, I mean, you were almost going to the choir for your voice, but I mean, eventually you still into badminton, and after that, I mean, it's actually your voice that made people remember of you. Like, yeah, so it goes back to your iconic "I don't believe it" voice.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's lovely because you know, my playing career helped me get into my second career as a commentator, and it's lovely that people in Indonesia and in other countries around the world think of me as a commentator, because that's what I am now. And the interesting fact is I've now been commentating for more years than I was a professional badminton player. So you know, this is my main job. So I want people to think of me as a commentator, not as a former player. That's just something I happened to do in the past.
Jill, I think you should have patented your phrase. I can't believe it. What on earth? Did you know that become so famous? It was like you. I mean, like, you know, so they're waiting those remarks. So tell us, how this phrase started? Like, what on earth? I mean,
it's extraordinary. I know they have become catchphrases, but
yes,
it certainly wasn't. It wasn't intentional,
okay.
And that's just the way I speak. I mean, you know, if I have a conversation with my mother, I'll you know, and the builder's next door, and I'll maybe say, how on earth are the builders going to get hide that pipe or something?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just the way I speak. It's not intentional, but it's rather fun that it has become sort of catchphrases for.
It is, yes. It's like a trademark of Gillian Clark.
So we do have some questions from our fans, and I think I will pass down to our team to actually read out the question. Over to Sean.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. So this is a question from Andre Pradana. He wants to ask you, how different is it being a player and a commentator?
Oh, what a terrific question. In some ways, it's very, very different. And in some ways, it's very similar. The difference is that I no longer have to get up and go for that early morning run. I no longer have to go to the gym and do physical training and hard sessions, practice sessions, and so on. But in another way, it's very similar that I think if you want to be good at something, then you just don't turn up and, you know, no badminton player would turn up at the World Championships having not practiced and not trained. You simply can't perform to your best. And I think it's a misconception that people have that all I have to do is just turn up in front of the microphone and just talk. And that's a small part of it. The majority of my work as a commentator is done behind the scenes. All the updating of player profiles, all the rehearsals that go into getting the opening program right, and so it's very, very similar. It's interesting. I was sitting actually in Jakarta at the Indonesian Masters earlier this year in January. I was sitting having breakfast with one of the players who's one of the nicest guys you will ever meet. And he said, Jill, what are you going to do with your 2 days off in between the two tournaments? And I said, well, I'll be updating player profiles. I'll update my tournament stats. I'll update world rankings and so on. And he said, but isn't that all automatic on the internet? And I said, yes, of course it's automatic, and I can check the players' world ranking, but what takes time is to find out, have they gone up to their new highest world ranking, or have they just dropped down from the highest world ranking? How many weeks were they at their highest world ranking? All of that sort of thing I update on a weekly basis. So, 2 minutes later, this guy who will remain anonymous, he was saying, okay, well, sorry to leave you, Jill, but I've got to go and practice. And he'd already lost in the tournament. He understood that he needs to keep the practice going. He needs to, even if he's out of a tournament, but there didn't seem to be a relation to what I do. And for me to be able to give the stats and the information about the players, I too need to do work on a daily, weekly basis, so that I've got the information to hand to try and make the viewing experience for the fans out there even better than just watching the badminton.
Yeah, I think you're very good with that, Jill. I mean, I remember in that time, like many years ago, remember that we met at the tournament, like, you're asking, like, the side question about the players, so you can inform, to the spectators. Did you remember that?
Yes, I do. Yes.
And you're very good at it.
And I think it's very, very important, because
yes,
that's what makes it interesting. And when I sit
Correct.
down and watch sport, I'm a huge sports fan.
Yes.
So I watch lots and lots of sport. And if you just said it's team A against team B, or it's player A against player B, where's the interest? In tennis, you tend to either be a Federer fan or a Nadal fan. You tend not to be a fan of both. Now, why do you like one player more than the other? If you know something about their backgrounds, about their family, about what they do in their foundation work. Federer runs a foundation, so does Djokovic, so does Nadal. What else they're doing, and also the importance of that particular tournament to that player. So Federer, last year at Wimbledon, when he came so close to winning a ninth Wimbledon title and extending his Grand Slam titles or majors to 21, and Nadal, his incredible record at the French Open. When you know that background, if Nadal is in trouble at the French Open, then it brings more significance to, crikey, this is going to be a huge, huge upset. So that, as a viewer, I find more interesting, and I get involved more than in watching that tennis encounter and that match. And I hope that by me introducing more stats and so on, brings more interest to the viewers in badminton.
So in your opinion, right, how important that stats play a part on the viewing experience? Because I myself, as a viewer, we actually do not see a lot of stats going on in the internet and in the publicity. So, honestly, all of us may think that most of the stats or fun fact or trivia that we have, they all come from you, Jill. So, what's your...
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of the stats on the internet do come from me, but that's because I've spent hours and hours. All the information I get, incidentally, is on the internet, but it's not published or presented in a way that I can easily find the stats that I want to give. So it takes a huge amount of time for me to go through all the results, decipher and extract the information in the format that I want it, that can then, I think, be fun for the viewers.
So, one thing about stats is actually like, when you talk about data, there are millions of data in the internet. You can talk about ranking, you can talk about match results, you can talk about, head-to-head results. So I think one of the question also when you are collecting data is like, how do you pick the right data and how do you make sure that, this is actually can be interesting to the public, and also one of the most interesting thing is like, when do you find out the right moment to actually bring up these stats? Because I think, other than stats, other than the numbers, is also the relevancy of like, probably no, less people will care that, oh, this particular player has won several times to some other players when they actually lose, right? Yeah. So like, do you have any particular tips on this data gathering and also the relevancy in the match itself?
Yeah. Well, when I'm preparing for a day's commentary, I will do between 3 and 4 hours of research time, and that's my criteria for what I think will be an interesting stat is simply what interests me. So if it interests me, then I hope it also interests other people. So that's my criteria. There's no point bringing up random stats, and this is why my research time takes so long, because I want it to be relevant to the match or the player or the tournament that I'm commentating on. So I always spend the time looking for those stats that are relevant, and if I find it interesting, then I hope maybe other people will find it interesting. That's my simple criteria.
And it's a very interesting test. So I think we have one more question from.
Yes. So the next question is from Sinta. She wants to ask you, how is your experience commentating in different stadiums and cities? Is there any particular cities that is your favorite?
Oh my goodness. I could make some people very happy and some people very cross. I think it goes without saying that every badminton player, every fan, I believe, and I'm not just saying this because I'm talking to you in Indonesia, Istora Senayan is the most iconic badminton venue anywhere in the world. The fans are noisy, enthusiastic, passionate, knowledgeable. The fans are knowledgeable. So commentating in Istora is a magnificent experience. And I would have to say as well, I think also commentating at the All England Championships is very special, simply because of the history of the event, and to see the importance of the All England Championships to the players. I found it very interesting. I know a couple of days ago you spoke to Hans Christian Wittinghus. I was fascinated by the fact that he said that winning the All England was perhaps as high a goal as winning World Championships. To him, that's the level of importance that he saw the All England Championships. And therefore, when you see that passion, that desire from the players to win a certain tournament, you always see it in the Olympic Games. I mean, the Olympic Games only happens every 4 years. And you see athletes in all different sports with almost a deranged caring. They care so much about wanting to do well in that particular event. And for us as spectators, that's what intrigues us, seeing that absolute commitment and desire to do well. Because, you know, as we're learning at the moment in this terrible pandemic, sport is important in our lives and in our well-being. There's more important things in life. And I think that, you know, to then see how much it means to athletes in badminton, to hear Wittinghus a couple of days ago talking about his desire to do well at the All England. So I see that in the athletes. I see Victor Axelson's reaction this year after he won in Birmingham. And so that makes it enjoyable for me as a commentator to witness that desire in players or athletes. That's very special.
Right. So, well, quick question, but is there any particular like match that you watched that you remember until now? Is there something like, whoa, this match, I cannot believe that happened, Is there any of that?
Oh goodness, yeah. There's so many matches that I guess if you really pushed me on it, I think one of the most, it's not a match, it's a particular tournament with a particular player that's very fresh in my memory. I think I'd have to talk about Carolina Marin and her defense of her China Open title last year. Having in the interim period, having a career-threatening injury. She'd played in Vietnam the week before.
Yeah.
She lost first round, I think it was.
Yeah.
She then went to China. All of us are thinking, oh my goodness, has she come back too soon? Is she really ready for this big stage? She's a defending champion. Is she really fit? Is she ready? And then to witness that determination, dispelling the demons. She must have had demons about the injury and about just giving it 100%. And for her to come back, the first major tournament after such a career-threatening injury, I think was phenomenal. And what really interested me about that is because a month after I turned 22, I actually ruptured my ACL in the final of the British Open. And I too went through surgery, and I'd been written off by a lot of people in badminton. And I think what fascinated me about Carolina Marin and that China Open experience last year was because I could relate exactly to it, because I'd gone through exactly the same things. I knew what she was thinking. I was knowing that there must have been question marks in her mind. Do I give 100% and risk the injury happening again? Or all those question marks you had. And she overcame that. She had the guts, the determination to come through it. And I related to it because, in fact, after my surgery and my injury, a little over 6 months after my surgery with my ACL, I retained my European Championship title. So it was all so fascinating, so interesting, because I'd been through the same experience. So not necessarily, it was a phenomenal achievement, don't get me wrong, what she did, but it was because I could relate to it that I found that particularly interesting and particularly memorable.
Right. I think I agree. Sorry, do you wanna?
Yeah, I think that's the reason the Carolina Marin, this year, purposely brought a team to film from the first round until the semi-final, I forgot that, I think this year. Because he got injured, right? Last year, during the Indonesia Master. So he we want to make a movie about it. So he really serious about it, really wanted to show that he can overcome the demon thing, that what you say. So
yeah, it was I think, to me, it was one of the most outstanding achievements in recent history in national badminton. It's and her whole team. It's not just Carolina Marin. I think her whole team who got her through it, from her surgeon to her physios to her trainers to her coach to her psychologists. I think they all deserve huge credit because it was the most incredible achievement.
Yeah, I think Carolina Marin, her biggest achievement was, I think, 2013, He was training in tangkis club before, and then he went to our training center. I forgot, in a few weeks or months, I forgot. And then in the Guangzhou 2013, I think he got into the quarterfinal. I think that's what the highest, at that time, the highest achievement by any Spanish badminton at that time.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not a professional badminton player, but I think in a sense, because I've once like ruptured my ACL, I do have that, like, I can feel that. And even like for me, going back to walking or running, that was a huge thing, you know, it's not easy to come back from that. So yeah, I think it was such an emotional tournament for her and for us who are watching as well.
Yeah.
But well, another thing that I wanted to ask is that, you know, you've been commentating for a long time, and I feel like for me personally, I've watched like even like locals or like somewhere like Malaysian or Indian badminton matches, and they all have like different styles and that, but not, I feel like, that can at least to be at your level where, you know, like, you know when to stop, you know when to say something, you know when, okay, this is time for stats, this is when, like, oh, okay, that's sensational, you know. So there are some like natural reactions that you do, but we also heard that you even come up to some players to ask how to pronounce their names. Is that correct? Is that just
correct? Correct, yes.
well, how important is that for you? And really, what does it take? What makes a good commentator, in your opinion?
Well, the first part of that question, I know I don't always get the pronunciations right, but I certainly try to. And I think that's only respectful. I mean, you have the respect of calling me Jill. I know in Asia, a lot of people would naturally probably call me Gil. But you have the respect to call me the way I call my name, which is Jill. And that's very respectful. And I think I should be respectful to the players, because without the players, I don't have a job. So I need, we must be. That's just been nice and polite. I do have a caveat on that though, because the French people, I don't know whether you have any viewers in France, but if anybody in France is watching and will watch this, the French people pronounce my name Gilles, and I want them
Sounds
to
romantic.
Say it's romantic, isn't it? It sounds beautiful.
Yeah.
So I would like all French people to continue calling me Gilles. But the second part of your question, what makes a good commentator? We're talking about television commentators, and I think the most important thing is that you add to the pictures, so that you have to assume that your viewers are not visually impaired. So they're able to see what's happening, but you need to tell them things that they can't automatically see or maybe have difficulty seeing. So you need to be able to give stats that are not on the graphics. You need to be able to give an insight that into the tactics that might not be obvious to some of the viewers. So you bring something, you add to the pictures. There's no point me just describing what's happening, because people can sit at home and they see that anyway. They want me to add to their viewing experience. So that, I think, is very important. And I think for because badminton is such a complex sport, the tactical intricacies and the change of little bits of tactics and so on, I think it's important to have a badminton knowledge and understanding, so that you can identify those and then either mention them yourselves or bring your color commentator in to explain about the tactical changes or what's needed tactically.
So like your experience as an athlete, do you have a lot of like role into that commentating, ability, I guess?
Well, as far as my playing career is concerned, I think what actually helped a lot is that because I played badminton so many years ago, we didn't have the funding in those days. We weren't an Olympic sport, so we didn't get funding from the government, which meant that we rarely had group training with other national players. We organised all our own training. We didn't have funding to go abroad. A lot of our funding came from ourselves. We did get some funding, of course, but often we didn't have a coach with us. So all the group of England players used to help each other, and we used to coach each other, which meant that rather than just being told by a coach, this is what you need to do, I learned to identify by watching other players what the tactics were that I should use. And I think that has actually stood me in very good stead now for my role as a commentator, because simply by necessity, I had to do that as a player.
Right. We've heard I've heard, people commentating just simply saying like, oh, that's a great smash, or like, whoa, that's a smash, Sandra smash, or things like that, that we've watched, that we see that. And it's just like, do you want to hear that? Something like that. But when we were telling people that we're going to speak to you, a lot of people responding with saying like, oh, I miss her, can you tell her we miss her voice, we miss her reaction, things like that. And so I think it's really interesting what you've done to the sport itself, that people don't just remember badminton, just the players, but you yourself actually make the sport much more interesting than it is. So yeah, I think it's amazing that a commentator now is not just simply commentating, but also, I guess in a sense, almost like an entertainer themselves, Yeah.
Well, that's very kind of you to say those things, and your fans also, because it's I just try to be myself when I'm commentating. I obviously have a passion for the sport, and I hope to continue doing this for many years to come. That would be lovely.
Yeah, we can't imagine badminton without you, to be really honest.
That's the reason why, we hardly like a badminton team championship. I mean, there's so many requests, to have you to be commentator. So this is why we have you.
That's awesome.
Well, that's very, very kind of you. I'm very, very honored. Thank you.
Well,
when it's really in the Philippines was a little bit scary that time. We almost not allowed to have the tournament that time. So luckily the organizer negotiated with the government not to have spectators. So
yeah.
All right.
It will be badminton, and also when we come out of this global crisis, will for a while be very different. And I think an awful lot of sporting events will have to be played behind closed doors. But I'm sure that the fans would rather be able to still see some badminton tournaments, even if they can't go to the venue.
Yeah.
And I know with certainty that the players would rather be back playing rather than sitting at home, not being able to play. Because that was another thing that came across with Wietinghoofs the other day. He said he wanted to play badminton forever. The love and the passion that badminton players have. And of course they would rather play behind closed doors with no fans than not play. So I think it's a happy compromise.
Okay, so we'll go back to our fans question segment. So we have another member of our team, Ian, that will read out two of our fans question. Over to you, Ian.
Okay, I have a question here from Linga. The thing about badminton is that we usually do not know the schedule and the match until late of the previous day. how do you prepare yourself for commentating on a match before the day?
Well, it's funny you should mention that. Very good question. Was that... And Omar Jill is longing to come back to Indonesia. I don't know when I will be there again.
Jangan lupa ikutin keseruan konten-konten di Badmintalk TV. Kalian bisa like, komen, dan juga subscribe. Gue Gavin. See you later.